Hello and welcome. Back in 2019, I visited my local bike shop, now sadly closed. I was ordering a new 700C wheel for a road bike. In a back corner, there sat this amazingly bright green hardtail mountain bike. It was intriguing, but I wasn't really in the market for a mountain bike. Long story short, I made it about a mile down the road before I turned around and bought Gojira, my Specialized Rockhopper. And let me tell you, if I could love an inanimate object, it would be this bike. The Rockhopper was the absolutely most basic of entry-level mountain bikes when I bought it. It had a 3x8 drivetrain comprised of a Shimano Tourney TX rear derailleur, an Altus front derailleur, a house brand Stout 2236 44 tooth 3-speed riveted crankset with 175mm arms, and a Sunrace 8-speed 11 to 34 tooth cassette. The other components were a Stout 90mm stem, Stout 720mm alloy bar, Shimano Tourney TX rapid fire shifter brake combo units, an SR Suntour XCT spring fork with 100mm of travel, Stout 160mm disc brakes with radium mechanical calipers, my first disc brakes by the way, a Stout seat post, and a Specialized hinge saddle. Not a terribly sophisticated setup, but certainly usable. In fact, I rode the bike in stock configuration for an entire season. When the next season rolled around, well, the upgrades started. What follows is arranged by components rather than chronology. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the stock saddle, let me be clear. However, the same cannot be said for my early mountain biking technique. I came down hard off a roller and I forgot to unweight from the saddle. The result, not surprisingly, was that I bent the seat rails. So I replaced the stock saddle with a really nice Bontrager Montrose Pro with titanium rails. It was very comfortable and good looking. Well, 2 rides later, guess what? Yeah, I made the same dumb mistake, but I actually broke this saddle, having pulled the rails out of their front mounts. So it was time for saddle number 3. I got a WTB Coda saddle, which is sturdy and comfy, and I'm still riding that one, having finally learned my lesson about riding position awareness. And what is a saddle without a seat post? I first replaced the stock 30.9mm diameter seat post with a KS eTENi external dropper with 100mm of travel, which I ran for a season. Next season, I installed a KS eTENi internal dropper with 125mm of travel. Is travel the right word for a dropper post? I don't know, but I'm sure that you get my drift. The stock Specialized tires were nice all-purpose units, and I ran them for 3 seasons. The treads were okay-ish, but the threads were starting to show through the sidewalls. That just seemed to me like asking for trouble, so I switched to a set of Bontrager Connection trail tires. I used them for a few months, but I didn't really feel like they had the grip that I wanted. They are presently on my backup wheels. So anyway, I ended up with a pair of Schwalbe Rapid Rods, having been pleased with a set on my vintage 26-inch Specialized hard rock bike. I ran those for several seasons until the center lugs started showing noticeable wear. I now have a pair of Specialized hard rocker tires that I got on sale from Specialized with about 4 or 5 rides on them, and these are really nice on the trails. As I mentioned, the bike came with mechanical, cable-operated radium disc brake calipers and 160mm stout rotors. These were real eye-openers for me in terms of increased stopping power. What little mountain biking I was doing at the time was on my 1995 LL Bean Approach, which I bought new back in the day. Among other vintage features were cantilever rim brakes. So yeah, discs were a big step up from those. But I can't leave well enough alone. So after a couple of seasons, I installed a set of Tektro pre-bled hydraulic brakes. I ended up having my local bike shop install the rear unit since I lacked the tools to do an internally routed line with the new fittings. The hydraulic brakes were as much of an improvement over the cable-operated brakes as the cable brakes were over rim brakes. All jokes aside, this may very well have been my best upgrade. I installed a Wake 720mm handlebar with more of a rise than the stock flat stout bar, and this gave me a more upright and comfortable riding posture when combined with a Wake 45mm stem. And just for a little fun, I also installed a set of green Rock Bros grips. Later, I swapped these for a set of black ESI Super Chunky foam grips. And I ran that setup for a couple of seasons before installing a JG Bikes 780mm bar with Ori lock-on grips. Oris are definitely my current favorite grips based on feel and fit, and they are in fact on all my mountain bikes. Regarding the fork, I've only made one fork upgrade to a Rockshox Judy Silver TK with 120mm of travel. While it's not the lightest, most sophisticated, or most compliant air fork out there, I honestly feel it's a great value for under $200 when I got it. It has both a lockout and a rebound adjuster, and so far, it has performed flawlessly. My first upgrade to the bike's drivetrain was installation of a JG Bike square taper 1x crankset with 175mm cranks and a 32-tooth Snail narrow-wide chainring. On the other end of the bike, I swapped the stock 8-speed cassette for an 11 to 40-tooth Sunrace 9-speed cassette. I replaced the rapid-fire combo shifters with Avid brake levers and a Shimano Altus trigger shifter operating a Shimano Altus rear derailleur. I also installed a set of Rock Bros resin pedals with steel pins, which essentially are knockoffs of Raceface Chesters. The following season, I upgraded the crankset to a Hollowtech style IXF with 175mm cranks and external bearings. This was both lighter and smoother pedaling. I reused the Snail chainring. Then, a couple of years ago on a whim, I installed an L-True AX 11-speed drivetrain. This included an 11 to 50-tooth 11-speed cassette, a rear derailleur, and a trigger shifter. Now, to be clear, I did not have high hopes for this at the time because it was an off-brand setup. I figured, hey, it might be good for a laugh. To my continuing surprise, this drivetrain's performance has been exemplary. I literally have had zero problems or concerns with it, and that humongous low gear makes climbing a lot easier. I am genuinely pleased with these components. And to finish off that upgrade, I added a set of Crank Brothers stamp pedals, which I really like. So, starting with a $560 super basic hardtail mountain bike, I now have a pretty well equipped ride. Not counting items that I have replaced, I've currently got $1,160 tied up in the bike. I have been asked more than once why I didn't just buy a well-equipped bike to begin with. Well, the answer is twofold. First, this bike was an impulse purchase. Literally, I was not planning on buying a mountain bike until I saw this one on the showroom floor. I guess that makes me the kind of customer businesses like. Second, I genuinely enjoy working on bikes as well as other machines. I get a lot of pleasure from seeing a project come to fruition. Now, I have 3 other mountain bikes, if we include my fat bike, and several vintage rigids. But when it's all said and done, my Rockhopper is my go-to mountain bike. And honestly, unless I somehow destroy the frame, I don't see that changing anytime soon. If you enjoyed this video, there is a link to Gojira's playlist, lower left, and a link to another video, lower right. As always, thank you for watching. I really do appreciate that. Goodbye, and have a wonderful day.